answers.
Hey guys and girls, how's it going? Hope you guys are having a great week. So back today to finally weigh in on Anthem. Okay, this video is going to be a little bit different. Usually with a review, I write a full script, but I decided as a massive Bioware fan that this review needed to come from the heart. Okay, so what this basically is it's a conversation, a discussion between myself and Dante, who's to the right of me. We've both been playing this game for the last couple of weeks. We've probably put in over 40 or 50 hours into it easily, and we wanted to sort of weigh in on our thoughts on it and what we generally think of it.
I was saying, was that 40 hours actually loading screens?
Yeah, it feels like the 40 hours. Yeah, maybe 20 hours of that has been loading screens. Absolutely. So, obviously, you all know Anthem's been in the news a lot. It's been quite controversial. Been a lot of mixed reactions to it. Metacritic Score at the moment is sitting at roughly about 60%. And user score is like 4.5, which is kind of shocking. It's actually got a lower Metacritic Score than compared to Mass Effect Andromeda. A lot of people are calling Anthem the death of Bioware. There's a lot of scaremongering going on out there. There's a lot of drama. So I obviously want to weigh in today on Anthem. You know, is it the death of Bioware? Is the game as bad as people are making out? What are my general thoughts on it? Now, you all know that I'm a massive Bioware fan. I have played all of their games, Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, Dragon Age. I've played a lot of them. They are very, very close to my heart. So
games.
Yeah, so bear that in mind. When I'm talking about a lot of the things in Anthem, it is coming from the mindset of a Bioware fan. And Bioware fans have certain expectations of Bioware because we've played their previous games. We know what they are capable of. We know what they can produce. So obviously bear in mind that's what this view is going to be from the perspective of. Now, is the game as bad as people have made out? Yes and no. Okay, there's a lot of problems with this game, but there are some positives with the game, and I do want to make sure that this review is balanced. So I am going to start off by talking about what the game actually does well. So let's start off first by talking about the visuals for the game and the lore. So Anthem is a beautiful looking game, without a doubt.
So shiny.
It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous looking game. When you're flying around the world, the green lush grasses, being able the first point when you're going underwater, and the sound effects of that as you drop under the water, the beautiful sunsets. It's a gorgeous looking game, and the world building has been quite incredible. It looks stunning. Okay,
So pretty.
It really does, and I think, you know, obviously the Frostbite engine can produce some really gorgeous looking visuals. Absolutely. The world and the lore has a lot of potential. If you sit down and actually read the codex, the Anthem of Creation is really interesting concept. It's absolutely insane. It has a lot of potential there. The Freelancers, the Sentinels, the Legion of Dawn, the Dominion, all the basics are there. The basics are there. This would make a great book or television series, you know what I mean? Yeah. The basics are all there. The bread and butter of it is there. But unfortunately, Anthem never fully realizes its potential. If you sit down and read the codexes and read the lore and take an hour or 2 hours to do so, you'll probably come away going, wow, this is a really interesting world. But the problem that they have is a lot of the lore is not really told through storytelling.
Yeah, we don't get to experience it, we just read about it.
Yeah, and I think Destiny did a similar thing when the first Destiny game came out, and even the second to a degree. Most of its lore was not in the actual base game itself. You had to go,
wasn't it?
Yeah, you had to go to an app or a website to read it. And I think Anthem's got the same problem. And for Bioware have always been a studio that's been very, very good with interweaving its lore with its story. So its lore was gradually revealed, particularly in the first Mass Effect game. They were brilliant at doing that, where you know, you'd go and explore the Citadel and you'd interact with different characters and you'd find out about all these different races by talking to your crew, by talking to your characters, you know, talking to Rex, talking to Garrus, talking to Liara, to find out about, you know, the Asari or the Genophage or whatever. That was done intrinsically as part of the story, and that is missing here from Anthem. So when you have that incredible lore and that incredible potential separated from its main story, a lot of people won't bother to read that codex.
A lot of them don't like reading.
They just want to get into the story and actually
learn it through playing.
Yeah, and that's a big problem with the game. I think that's one of the major issues with it. But the lore has a lot of potential here. So you know, this is directly to Bioware. If you are going to be adding content to the game, which I know you're planning to do, and I'm sure there are many plans for an Anthem 2 or an Anthem 3, you've got to tell your lore through the story. You know, the story is where it's at for Bioware, and you really can't afford to be separating those two things. So I think that is one of the biggest issues to start off with. What else does it get right? The flying.
Flying is awesome. It's like being Iron Man. You're just buzzing around. And the different javelins as well. You had like the Colossus. It felt like a flying tank.
Yeah.
It wasn't as fast, but you felt meaty. Whereas you got like the javelin ninja ones and all that. They got it spot on. The controls work really well.
Yeah, I think the flying is definitely the best part of the game, and it feels very intrinsic as well. You know, from being able to clicking the left thumbstick to fly, the right thumbstick to then suddenly stop and hover in air. You can use it as a way to sort of drop very suddenly or change direction or control your direction very easily. The flying was really great. Exactly like Dante said, the 4 javelins feel very unique, very different, not only in flying mechanics but also in the combat and the different abilities that they've got. The actual physical combat and gameplay and flying mechanics are really, really, really good. The combat feels very sweet. It feels very rewarding. It feels like you're in control of your javelin. The different javelin abilities are really, really cool. I think I ended up playing as a ranger first, then I did Interceptor, and then I did Storm. And I didn't think I would enjoy Storm as much as I actually did, but I just felt amazing, like especially hovering above and bringing, you know, controlling lightning and fire and ice and the elements, and I just felt absolutely incredible. The Interceptor was it's so hectic. It feels very hectic at first, but once you get control of it and you're spinning and melee attacking like people, yeah, it feels incredible. And then obviously you played as the Colossus, didn't you, for a lot of it?
Big meat shield, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like playing a Krogan but in a mech.
Yeah, I kept trying to head nut everything, and the shield is a great bringing it up to defend everyone or just barge through stuff. It was cool. It's
a really, really good support class, especially when it comes to rezzing characters and sort of guarding people when you're on objectives.
Yeah, I rezzed a lot of people.
You did. You were like the resident medic, weren't you? And so the different javelins are great. They're really, really well designed. They have, you know, very different abilities. I particularly loved the whole detonator and primer combos that you could create. That, for me...
Mass Effect-y.
Yes.
Came out,
it felt like Bioware. It felt at that point, I think when I had my first combos that were hit, I think my first instinctive reaction was, oh, thank God, this feels like a Bioware game. Brilliant. You know, doing the whole detonator and primer felt like playing Mass Effect. Even the sound effects from like using a cryo grenade and then fire and hearing that splintering sound, you know, when they explode, that for me just hit all those nostalgic bells, and I thought, oh, I'm back at Mass Effect again. I'm playing Mass Effect.
Yeah, a bit like the multiplayer. It promotes the teamwork because it's like, oh, you set them up, I'll knock them down.
And I think Bioware's really good at that. You know, they're really good at cooperative play and teamwork. I mean, that was one of the benefits from, you know, the Mass Effect multiplayer, and that was really great. You know, setting up those primers and those combos and everything, and that was really cool. What I would have to say though is, when you're playing, obviously if you've got party chat, you can sort of coordinate much easier in terms of your combos and your detonations. It's a little bit more difficult when you're just playing with randomers in the world, particularly on strongholds, because you'll have certain people like setting up primers but then someone not detonating them or not using the right combos or that
Mass
kind
Effect
of thing.
3 multiplayer all over again.
So I feel like if they'd like implemented like the ping system You know what I mean? Like they had done, like, you know, like in Apex Legends, where you could ping it and your character would suddenly say, I'm going to prime that boss, and then to let them know what you're going to do, and then obviously they could be ready with a detonator rather than, because your powers have recharge.
Yeah, the cooldowns,
you know what I mean?
cock
Yeah,
up a lot of plans.
exactly, they do. So I think you need that voice. You either need to be having voice chat as an option, or the ability to sort of ping for people that are maybe socially awkward and don't like to speak to random people in the world. Because there are people like that, particularly with the story gamers that just want to play the experience solo, but then when they're forced to do multiplayer in the strongholds, they feel uncomfortable with coordinating and communicating with people. So, you know, it might make that a little bit better. I've got to say as well, with the end game, once you're playing the higher difficulties, the game kind of clips your wings. And if you're trying to fly around the enemies, like, you're going to die. It's like suddenly your shields become paper thin, and suddenly the AI just switches it on, and all of a sudden, like, you're just grounded. You overheat so quickly, so easily, especially when you're going against, like, the higher level titans.
Yeah, they just snipe you instantly out of the air.
Yeah, and so, like, I think that needs to be fixed. I think Bioware needs to really be sort of leveling that a little bit better so that you can fly, because, like, the flying mechanic is the best part of the game. So having that suddenly no longer be an option when you're playing the harder difficulties takes a lot of the fun out of it, and it just becomes a normal third-person shooter.
Yeah, I think they're trying to patch a lot of it from the scaling, basically, because even your support weapons just become complete garbage in higher difficulties. It's like, what's the even point anymore? So I think they're trying to get a good balance more.
Yeah, I think when you get to the end game, you know, that really is the problem with it, especially with some of the weapons. So let's talk about, obviously, that's what he does well. Okay, flying mechanics, combat, visuals, and the lore. Okay, those are really, really good, and they have a lot of potential. But let's talk about some of the problems with the game, because there are many, unfortunately, and there are numerous, and some of these things, they do break my heart to talk about it. And I have to admit, I've been going through the different stages of grief once I finished the game. At first I was kind of in denial, like, this game can't be as bad as it has been, and then I was quite angry about it. When we finished the last mission, I had a glitch after the end of the mission, and it was just such a low point for me to end the game in such a low that I literally just I think I just threw off my headset. I did an Angry Joe moment. That's what I did. It was a you done fucked it up moment. That's what it was. And so, like, I was really pissed at the end of the game, and I needed a bit of time to get my thoughts together and try to, you know, detract my emotions from everything else. But let's talk about what the game does wrong, because unfortunately there are a lot of problems that need addressing. Now, this is not a bitching review. This is not to go, it's shit, it's crap, it's rubbish. This is constructive feedback for Bioware. So everything that we're going to focus on here, we're going to talk about what they could do to get it better as well. Okay, the idea with this is constructive feedback. Let's start off with the story. Okay, now, obviously, Bioware is a studio that have been renowned for having the best story, character development out there. They were a studio that was famous. If you bought a Bioware game, one thing you knew you'd always get from it was an incredible story experience, interesting and engaging characters, and a hell of a ride. Okay, and for me, the pinnacle of Bioware's achievement with storytelling was Mass Effect 2, without a doubt.
Very much.
That was the pinnacle, and that's I held everything to that standard now for Bioware whenever I look at it. Now, if we're to look at the story, okay, if we were to compare it to similar other games of similar genre, say the first Destiny, The Division, if we're to compare the story of Anthem to those games, other looter shooters of that class, which have notoriously had terrible storylines, actually the story for Anthem is pretty good compared to those. There's cutscenes, really good cutscenes even when you're out in the world, particularly later on towards the end of the story. There's a lot of really good cutscenes, really good character interactions. You do get to engage with different characters in the world, you know, and get to sort of know them a little bit better. The story has a definite arc, you know what I mean, and it has a definite resolution, okay? So compared to Destiny and Division, the story is actually pretty good, right? If we're to look at it in that way. You know, the voice acting in this game is great.
Oh, it's spot on.
It's always good in Bioware games, though. They always seem to cast really good voice actors, okay?
They got some interesting ones in this time, didn't they?
Yes, they really did. And a wide variety of sort of accents and different things. And I quite liked it. You know, I particularly really enjoyed Dax. I thought Dax was a really great character. I really enjoyed Sentinel Dax. I found her character right from the get-go, from meeting her for the first time. I found her really like charismatic and really engaging and just really likable and funny.
Yeah.
And you know, that character was really great. So I loved her. I thought she was really interesting. I wanted to see more of her character. I really enjoyed Matthias. I thought Matthias's story arc was really interesting, and what happened to him was really interesting as well. I thought Owen had a lot of potential. Again, Halleck and Faye, the visuals, the facial animations are really, really good. The voice acting is really, really good in it. But I felt for my crew, Halleck, Faye, and Owen, that there needed to be more development there. You know, I felt like their characters weren't developed enough, and we only kind of got to know them halfly. Like, we didn't get to know them fully. I felt like it should have been longer. But there were moments in the game that were really good, and there were moments where I was like, yes, this is the Bioware writing I know, this is the Bioware spark I know. So compared to Destiny and Division, much better, right?
Sorry, I'm just remembering Gunther.
Oh, yes, there was one character that was awful. That was Gunther.
You've got to be doing that on purpose.
Yeah, I feel like he must have done, because his voice acting was really terrible. I think he was the one exception, which in a Bioware game is so unusual. So I feel like they did that as a piss take.
I think they were, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was an inside joke. But let's talk about the story for Bioware standards, okay? Now, this story, by Bioware standards, has got to be the worst storytelling that Bioware have ever produced. By Bioware standards.
I'm wondering if it's because of the pacing and the way it's now, this online world.
Yeah.
It feels like they've had to split it up or ruin it in certain ways on purpose to fit it in this mold.
It feels like the game doesn't fully know what it is. The game feels like it's at war with itself. It's trying to be an online action-focused looter shooter. It fails in that respect in many ways. And it's trying to be this single-player, linear story, you know, story-based game as well. But in that way it fails as well, because the pacing, it doesn't match. You have your slow moments where you're supposed to be talking to your characters in Fort Tarsus and these really slow kind of conversations and things like that, but then you have this really high octane heavy action and explosions and gunfire and, you know, and going on in the world, and it just doesn't mesh.
It all worked in the Mass Effect games, Dragon Age and all that, because it was a single player experience. You got to explore the characters between missions at your own pace. It was all good. Here, we kept struggling. It was like, we're wanting to play this co-op together. Now, headphones off, we're having to chat to all the NPCs before we get the headphones back on and carry on.
For some, it felt very much like it's a game it's a multiplayer game where you don't want anyone to talk.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to interact. So when
missing plot, shut up.
Yeah, it's like, I've got a cutscene, stop talking. But then like you're kind of like you're waiting around and hanging around and it's really weird. And then even like it just feels like the story doesn't feel right. You're right, the pacing is one big issue, you know, and that's because of the onlineness of it and everything else. You can't do things at your own pace. People like to explore things at their own pace. The big problem as well, I think, with the characters is because the story is it's too short. The story is too short. I think you can finish the story in like 20 hours?
Yeah, if you blitz through it.
Just blitz through it. You could probably do it without all the loading screens and without all the glitches and all the problems that we had with it. You could probably finish a story in 20 hours. Now, a 20-hour story by any other game would be considered pretty good length. But by a Bioware RPG, aspect of it, but by their standards, it's really short.
Yeah.
And it feels like it feels with the story like large chunks of it have been lifted out, or like it's a bit
get filled in later.
Yeah, or it's a bit higgledy-piggledy. Like even the start of it, when you jump in and you've got the first mission in the Heart of Rage, you've got your crew and you see Halleck there and you see Faye and stuff happens to your team, but you don't feel connected to it at all because you don't really know them. So it's like you know, you don't feel like, oh my god, that's really bad, what happened, or you feel like, oh, that's sad, but you don't feel like completely invested. And even like certain, there aren't like, the characters just feel very safe to a degree. Like there aren't moments where you have to make you don't have to make really heart-wrenching decisions in this game. The choices that you make are really small and kind of inconsequential.
Pretty much.
You choose to answer in this way or answer in this way. You've got two choices, but they always seem to result in...
You'll get different dialogue in return, but
the same results. Yeah. So you're not making these heart-wrenching decisions that you had to do. The game never makes you stop and think. Because it is always in the back of its mind. It's like, and you've got to go back into multiplayer, to carry on the next action. So it's not... I remember when I played the first Mass Effect game and I had to make those choices about, like, do I let, the friggin' Rachni Queen live or die? Do I cure... do I tell Rex about the Genophage? Like on... what was it? On that planet, on the planet where Caden dies.
Oh.
And you remember it? Yeah. And like, the Line planet, and like all these things, and you had to make like these stepping in front of Garrus's sniper rifle when he was going to kill Sidonus, I think it was, like these really heart-wrenching decisions that you had to make, and they had very definite consequences. I mean, hell, Rex could attack you and you could have to kill him.
Could have had him dead by
it's
game
heartbreaking decisions that you had to make, and those moments are the memorable moments for me that made the game really, really special. And Bioware used to be a developer that didn't shy away from the really difficult choices, and it feels like the story in this game it's just very vanilla.
Is it because it's online? Would it have to branch too much?
Yeah,
like the other players
because you can't affect the world. You can only affect Fort Tarsus, which doesn't feel as significant enough.
Yeah, and it doesn't even get affected that much.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with the characters. Just feel very vanilla. I mean, the main character is incredibly uninteresting. You're freelancer. You do character customization where you can choose out of preset faces at the beginning of it, and then you don't really see your character except in the odd tiny cutscene.
And then you wish you picked a different face.
Even the cast of characters, like they just feel, apart from the odd one like Matthias and Dax, like they just seem very... Most of the NPC characters I couldn't give a shit about. I'm sorry, but it's true. I don't care. I do not care. I literally said, if this character dies, I'm not bothered. There's no connection. I didn't feel any connection, even with Halleck and Faye. Like with Faye, there was so much opportunity, because when she went into the Heart of Rage and she was speaking to the Anthem and could hear the Anthem, that made her go a little bit crazy. And they never really... Apparently, but they never really delved into that. Yeah. And you never sort of saw the consequences or effects of it. Even with Halleck and him being angry at you, you never really addressed that head on. And like, there wasn't really any character development, and Owen's character arc as well, that felt the same as well. So I think Bioware just seemed to play it too safe with the story and the characters, and it feels like a story that's half baked. It's a cake that's half baked. It's a bit cold on the inside. It's a bit raw. It's not quite there.
Still stodgy inside.
Yeah, still a bit stodgy. It feels like the game needed longer for development, which, considering the game has been in development since 2012, apparently, is absolutely baffling. 6 years. And this is what they've produced. And this isn't just a small indie developer. If this was a small indie title, like, for example, No Man's Sky, you could kind of forgive it, right?
Yeah.
But this is a big, huge studio like Bioware. For them to release a game like this, just for me, is it just baffles the mind.
And with the amount of things wrong with it and errors and that. You wondered, did it get rushed out? And then should have just held back.
I feel like maybe when they started off the game that they were too ambitious with it, and I feel like maybe part way through development they changed their view or their mind, and so they've restarted development part way through. They've had to scrap what they've done. You know what I mean? And I feel like because when we looked at because it was in 2016, they revealed an E3 trailer, and it showed Fort Tarsus, and it showed like the city was bustling and it had all these things, and then you had these like freaking striders that were walking in the middle of the city and you could see it, and then you had NPCs that would actually come up to you and interact with you as you were walking through. Whereas here they're all very static and they're in their place. You've got day-night cycle, but it affects nothing. They're always there 24 hours a day. They never move. When do they sleep or eat? Like there's no, for today's modern standards, it's pretty lazy in my opinion. So that's a big problem. I think as well, like Bioware made some really baffling design choices for me that just didn't make sense. Like the first person perspective just didn't work for me. It just didn't work.
They said the reasoning was to see more through the eyes.
And it makes it easier for them to sort of control the way in which you're seeing characters and when they're talking to you and things like that. But then they'd have the same animations. Like Faye kept doing this thing with her hands, like all the time, and every single time you speak to her. There was one point actually where it was two NPC Sentinel characters, and they both had the exact same animation, and they did it at the exact same time. It was like they were copycatting each other and stuff like that. So like even that was lazy. Like creating these crafted kind of, just so stupid.
I loved it when they were like, oh, where's Dax? Oh, she's gone out, and she stood right there.
Right there.
And the camera just slowly pans away from her.
Dax's aunt, But just things like that. The first person perspective, I think being able to see your character and see your character react to things is important if you're wanting to be connected to your main character and also to the other characters.
Camera flicking back and forth like in
that's absolutely fine. So I think the first person perspective really didn't work. The movement in Fort Tarsus was still too slow for me, particularly because it spawned you back next to Owen, but then you'd have if you crashed out, which I did like multiple times, but then you'd have to run back to all the way through to get to your javelin and also to get to the forge to have a look at all your gear and stuff. Apparently in the latest update now, Bioware are saying that you can actually start a mission from anywhere in Fort Tarsus.
Just by holding triangle?
Just by holding triangle,
so
or whatever it's going to be.
Set parties.
But apparently that's now going to be a thing that you can do. So they are at least listening to feedback, so you've got to give them credit for that. But I mean, the first person's perspective really didn't make any sense to me. The excessive loading screens was a huge problem. I felt like I was playing a frigging loading screen simulator. It just didn't... I've probably spent, I bet you, if you added up the amount of time that you spent in loading screens versus the gameplay, I bet you, I'm not kidding you, it'd be about 50-50.
Probably, yeah. And it just really breaks up the pacing when you're in, especially in a team and all that. It's like, oh, you've gone through that tunnel. Wait, but loading screen, we're waiting a bit.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's also when you're out in the world, like you have to go to a loading screen to then go to the matchmaking screen. You then have to go to a loading screen to go into the main world. When you're in the main world and exploring, if you go through like a tunnel or a cave, you then have to go into another loading screen. You're then playing it. If you get too far behind your squad, you then have to go into another loading screen to then be teleported to them. Then once you finish the match, you then got another loading screen to go into the expedition results screen where you get all your XP and you find all your loot. You then got another loading screen to go back to Fort Tarsus or back to the forge.
What did the forge before or after? That's another
four loading screens. So like, it's baffling. Those decision choices are just absolutely baffling to me. And the fact is, after every single mission, it forces you then to go back to Fort Tarsus. You can't stay out in the world. Say if you pick up several contracts, you can't stay out in the world and just ping another contract on the map and go straight there. Like, so the map really isn't open world. It isn't open world at all in any way. Because if it was open world, you'd be able to travel through it and activate other missions in that world. And the world as well, if we were to talk about it when you're actually traversing it, it's quite empty. It's quite an empty world, like, as open world standards go. There aren't NPCs out in the world, really. There's the odd enemies that will spawn and come in. There is wildlife in the world, but then they don't really interact with each other. There's no, like, wildlife, like,
could you imagine if it was
like if
a
it was like
Monster
Hunter
Hunter
World
food chain?
Yeah, like if it was like, because
awesome.
Well, the thing is, well, right, in one of those trailers they showed an Ursix, right, in the world, and this Ursix, I'm not kidding you, in this gameplay trailer which they showed back at E3, this Ursix picked up one of the other animals in the world, I forget what it was, picked it up and threw it at you. Right? And these animals were interacting between yourself, and you could look at them, and then you decided not to pursue it and you carried on. That's blatant lying. They blatantly lied to show, like, oh, this world is alive and these animals are interacting, and then there's this food chain, and it just didn't happen. It's like the game had just, I feel like that was their ambition. That's where they wanted to go, but they just ran out of time.
Or restrictions.
Or restrictions placed on them, who knows, because of EA or whatever restrictions placed on them, but they just weren't able to achieve that. And so the end result was just a world that's virtually beautiful looking, but empty.
Yeah.
Right? Except for the odd enemy. And yeah, just like the pacing of it is just really irritating. And then when you combine that with all the performance issues, which I'll get to soon, that just is the final nail in the coffin. So every time, and each mission in the world, you know, whether you're doing just a contract or whatever it might be, even the missions are quite short. You know, you could finish a mission in like 15-20 minutes.
Sometimes wondered if it was worth the loading screens.
Yeah, and then you'd be back in the loading screen and back at Fort Tarsus. So at no point did we play like a solid 3 or 4 hour just pure gameplay of being out in the world and exploring and fighting and doing missions. So that's a real problem. It would have been much cooler if you had NPCs out in the world that you could actually then interact with. They then do talk about these other forts around, don't they? These big cities. And they just sounded incredible. Like Anthem was one that just sounded amazing.
Like that's going to be a sequel.
Yeah, it just sounded so incredible, and I was just like, I want to go there. I want to see it, you know, as part of the actual gameplay. And then you never see these Striders, which are supposed to be these amazing, like, walking forts to get you from place to place. You never actually see them walking out in the world.
Papercraft 8080s or something that just crumble all the time. They just
crumble, and they're just stuck there. They're static. They don't move. There's this amazing cutscene where the Dominion are attacking Freemark, and they show these Striders with these big guns attacking it, and it's done in a cutscene, and like the whole way through I'm like, oh my god, I want to play that. That looks incredible. And like you just sat watching this amazing thing happening on screen.
Instant disappointment afterwards.
And then instant disappointment because you don't get to actually play it. And so like there's supposed to be these incredibly powerful things, but you never see them move. You never have to go and like protect any of them really. And like it wouldn't be so cool if like if it was walking, you were flying alongside it, and you had to protect it from enemies.
Potential.
Yeah, there's so much potential, and they just made these really mind-boggling decisions that just baffle me. And then that inability to stay out in the open world for me was a real like contention. Like that really pissed me off. It really irritated me. And then of course we've got to talk about the poor and uninspired game design. Like, you know, there's so much potential with this game. And Bioware, right, have done some friggin' incredible level designs before and game designs. I mean, the entire suicide mission in Mass Effect 2, for me,
yeah, that's sweet.
The epitome of incredible game design. You know, really, like, nail-biting combat, big decisions you had to make. Like, just, they've done some great set pieces in their games. And, like, it felt like, you know, like when we reviewed the first Destiny game and we talked about like the whole fucking Ghost having to like hack these computer terminals and having stay in a circle and protect it. They do this in Anthem, the same again. So you usually it's like 3 kind of type of mission gameplay designs.
A bit like Hack the Point on the multiplayer.
Yeah, pretty much like Hack the Point. So it'd be like you basically, you're hacking your Cypher, which is Owen, or Faye, or hacking this stone thing in the world, and it gives this green circle, and you've got to stay in this green circle while they're actually like hacking it, kind of like what was in the Mass Effect multiplayer. And then you've just got waves of enemies that you have to fend off, right? It's not too difficult, to be fair. You've got the echoes that you then have to collect to drop off into like the different kind of Anthem of creation, like the different what are they called? Relics, the different relics, to silence them, collecting parts of things to turn it back. You then got the odd puzzle solving thing, but they're really basic.
The ones with the answers right next to
know. It's like the puzzles treat you like you're dumb. They're like, oh, here's a puzzle, the answer's right there on the wall, good luck. Yeah. And it's really crap. Like the gameplay design, whoever designed the gameplay in Anthem, I'm sorry, but you need firing. You do. Like, and it's just lazy game design. And like, there's so much, even like there's like really cool moments, like where the one where you're doing General Tarsus, where you're reliving epic moments as the general. And there's the odd bit where you're doing really cool bits, but then there's one bit where you have the circle and you have to keep moving back, and it's just waves of that. Could have been so freaking cool. There's so much potential, right? Because when you've got the Anthem of Creation can do some crazy shit. It can mix and flip gravity. It can mess with time and reality. It can do some crazy shit, right? And there was so much potential with their game design. I mean, they could have done a level where you were flying through and gravity kept swapping and you kept having to dodge debris. At no point did they do any missions where you have to use your flying mechanics. That would have been so cool, because flying's the best part of the freaking game.
I do wonder if it's for later.
Oh, bullshit. It needs to come out with a game when it's actually released. Excuse my French, but that's complete BS. That needs to come out with a game when it was released. So there was so much potential there for really cool set pieces, you know what I mean? And I just feel like they missed out on an opportunity. I feel like Bioware made all the mistakes that Bungie made with the first Destiny game and that Ubisoft made with the first Division. I feel like they have just kept their head in the sand for 5 years, that they haven't been paying attention to what's going on in the gaming industry, that they haven't been doing their research, because they made the exact same mistakes that Destiny and the Division made. Right, particularly with Destiny's gameplay design. Even Destiny had some better moments than Anthem did. And I just feel with the gameplay design was a big problem. So that's one huge issue, is the game design. Really boring sort of game design. Then don't get me started on the whole Legionnaire tombs, because that for me was just absolutely so frustrating. That was like just a purposeful... Yeah, it's like when the developer purposely put something into, I know what we're going to do to make our game a little bit, to lengthen it out and make it a bit longer. We're going to put these really, really irritating challenges and trials that you have to do to be able to do it.
To prolong the gameplay.
Now, luckily for when we played the game, Bioware had put this update in wherein you could actually be pinging some of those challenges as you were playing through the main missions. But I know a lot of people that played the game prior to that, they had to start from that point, and a lot of them are really irritating stuff, like opening 25 chests. It then had glitches where, like, if you were with in free play with 4 other people, unless you were the one to open the chest, it wouldn't ping for you. Unless you were the one to get the killing shot, it wouldn't ping for you. Awful game design. They did fix that, so it was a lot quicker to do. But then when you got to actually opening these tombs, it was so meh. Like, you opened it and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We'll go in. We'll probably... And each of these Legionnaire tombs are, like, very famous sort of Legionnaires, like in the Legion of Dawn. And each of them are famous for different things. So there's one of them that was a really famous, like, sharpshooter, like a legendary sniper. And I thought, oh, this would be cool. We'll maybe do a mission where we've got to do, like, sniper-type objectives and, like, take out enemies in such a time frame or stuff like that. Nope. Just open it up, tomb, there's a coffin at the bottom, go along to it. It's a little bit of spiel.
I didn't even get that. Then you got spiel, and then other players in the team. It's like, I'm not hearing anything.
You didn't get anything, did you? And then you just get random random engrams junk which isn't even you didn't well they're like they're basically engrams from Destiny, but you didn't even get like a weapon that was specific to that Legionnaire.
Generic trash.
Like if it would have been cool if I would have got like a really sweet ass sniper rifle or a really sweet ass shotgun or a really sweet ass piece of armor, so that then I can be like, look, I've been through these challenges, I've been through the trials, and this is visually what I've got, right? Yeah. Like that would have been really, really cool.
Would have been nice.
It would have been great, but yeah, it just seems like they didn't really know what they wanted. I don't know. I just, it's baffling for me, those kind of decisions that they made. I'm just like, did no one think that was really shit? Like, did they not play their own game? Because I feel like they can't have played their own game. If they played their own game, then surely someone would have picked this shit up. Someone would have been like, do you know what? We've got too many loading screens. Do you know what? Maybe our gameplay should be a little bit more variety. Maybe we should have a bit more variety with our enemy factions. They've only got 3. You know, the Scars, the Dominion, and the Outlaws. Outlaws and the Dominion are kind of very similar looking.
Yeah.
You know, only the Scars are the interesting looking one, and they're just bugs like people. So yeah, I feel like, you know, that's just a missed opportunity there. Absolutely, there was so much potential for some epic moments. There really was. The biggest problem with it is just the lack of content. There's such a lack of content with the game, not only in the story and the missions, but also in your options. I mean, like the customization options in this game for your armor is shit. Like, yeah, you can customize your color, and that's fine, but like the armor sets, they're locked behind, effectively, they're in Prospero's store when they update every 3 days, and they cost a ridiculous amount of money. Like, in-game currency, I think they cost like 61,000 coins. And after playing the game for 40, 50 hours, I think I've only got 130,000 coins. And Bioware gave me 40,000 to start off with. So it's really hard to make that money. You have to do like weekly and daily challenges and do all the challenges to get that money.
But wait, you could pay real money, microtransactions.
Exactly. So if you want to buy the actual armor set, it costs you like, I think, £8.50 or something like that, to actually buy the armor set. But then you've only got the one armor set, and like
and it rotates. So if you were saving up for something, it's like, oh, it's gone now.
Yeah, you've only got 3 days to actually save up for that one piece. That's it. So like, if you buy something and then something better looking comes along, you actually don't have enough time to save up the money to be able to get it, and that's a real problem. And I think like just not giving you. How have they just not incorporated like armor sets into drops? Like, how can you not get these as well as weapons and abilities and things
Scavenging
in the world?
off a dead one.
Yeah, like or getting certain armor sets for getting to particular levels or doing particular challenges. Like, I think one thing that Destiny does very, very well is its loot, and its customization with its armor sets. That is one thing that Destiny has always done incredibly well.
Borderlands does it better.
True, Borderlands is very good, but you can craft some really sweet looking armor sets that make you look very unique and very different. Each of those armor pieces have got their own stats and their own lore and their own history. You then got some really interesting, unique looking weapons as well. I think Destiny does loot brilliantly, including its customization and its armor sets. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with Anthem is its armor sets are virtually non-existent, or they're very small. They're tied to Prospero's store, which is clearly EA's influence, because they're wanting it to be connected to microtransactions, so that people are going to put down real money to buy these armor sets, when actually they should be in the game as content. There should be a certain number of armor sets in the game from the start, whether it's 10, 20 different looking armor sets. And then if you want to put microtransactions for really unique looking armor sets, then do it. But as standard, there should be at least 10 to 20 different armor sets in the game, without a doubt. The lack of endgame content is really poor. Once you get to level 28, level 30, and you're grinding to get sort of masterwork stuff and legendary gear, your only real options there are to play strongholds or legendary contracts, right? The legendary contracts are just recycled contracts that you play again, repeatable contract that you play again and again. There are only 3 strongholds, and actually 2 of them are recycled. One of them's from the beta, and then one of them is pretty much the final last mission that you play in the story in a stronghold. So only one of them is new. So they're just 3, and they're recycled, and it's just rinsing them over and over again. There isn't enough content in this game at start. Another thing Destiny did better is it had really good endgame content at the start. It had the raid that was introduced after a week, the first raid, the different weekly strikes, the different legendary strikes. They had really good endgame content in Destiny, and Anthem just doesn't have it. And looking at the 90-day plan that they've got for future, even that, the first big content, the first big new content, which is Cataclysms, isn't coming until May. So they're going to really, really struggle to keep that player base. People are going to stop playing this game after a couple of weeks, and they're not going to come back. And I can't really blame them. Because after you play those strongholds again and 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 again, you're done. Even when you play them on harder difficulty, it's just making the enemy slightly more deadly, making the AI making it bullet spongier. It's not changing the core of what it is. You know what I mean? And that really, really is a problem. Of course, the boring and lackluster loot, I've already talked about that, but the loot in this game is shocking. It is shocking. You do have, of course, masterworks and legendaries, and you get these special sort of engravings or inscriptions on them. They give them extra sort of stats and things. But in terms of the loot, there are different classes of weapons. There's assault rifles, marksman rifles, sniper rifles, shotguns. Rocket, there's only
3 of each.
That's it. There's only 3 of each. That's it. 3 fucking assault rifles. That's it. That's all there is. That's just shocking. There was more assault rifles in Mass Effect than there are in Anthem, and it's a looter shooter. See, that's just mind blowing to me. And then when you look at the actual masterwork and the legendaries, it's pretty much the same weapon, but with a different skin.
But with a little mod on it, tops.
Yeah, so it doesn't even feel different. When you got the epics, the exotics in Destiny, they looked so different. They played so different. And they all had really interesting lore to do with each of those exotics that you got. And getting those exotics was, I can't believe I'm actually saying Destiny's better. I can't believe I'm actually doing this, because I had issues with Destiny. I did. But when it comes to the loot, Destiny got it right.
There's no PvP in Anthem. Let's just break the balance. Who cares?
Yeah,
let's kill enemies.
There is no PvP. Yeah, exactly. So there is no reason why they can't do these absolutely insane weapons, like getting these special Legionnaire sniper rifles and swords and things. I want my fucking Interceptor to have a sword. You know what I mean?
It's really kind.
Yeah, it is. It's got the knives, but the loot is just, it's so boring and so basic and just not uninspired. You just get it and you're just going through and you're just destroying everything simply because that's got a better stat on it. And that's all you're doing. You're not really looking at even the masterworks. When you get it, it's oh, I got a masterwork, but then it pings, and then you can get duplicates, because I got a duplicate masterwork, didn't I? That really irritated me.
Deconstructing that then.
Yeah, so it's completely RNG for you getting it, because I think I got 4 or 5 in one mission, and you got none, which is a bit irritating for you. Yeah. So the lack of content, the lack of really boring loot is a big problem. But the biggest problem with this game, without a doubt, is its performance issues. That's the biggest issue I had with Anthem. There are so many network issues. I had huge problems at the beginning of missions where it would crap out, but I had even bigger problems at the end of missions. When you go from the ending a mission to the loading screen to get to the expedition screen, which allows you to gain XP and also to find out what loot you actually got. Every time at the end of that, it would crap out for me. The game would just crap out. So I would end up getting like pushed back into Fort Tarsus, and then I wouldn't get any of that loot I'd have it, but I wouldn't be able to unlock it to be usable.
Purposely jumping into free play, weren't you?
Yeah, so then I'd have to go into free play by myself and then come straight out of free play again, which again in itself is another 2 or 3 loading screens, just to be able to then get that loot. And that happened to me at the end of the final mission, didn't it?
Yeah.
When we actually killed the boss, which was a really just disappointing end to the story anyway for me. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spoil anything.
But a bit like Destiny as well.
Yeah, it was just like that's it then, okay. That was a bit shit. But yeah, I had that problem at the end of it, didn't I? And I think that was the final straw for me. And that just meant that I couldn't get into a flow with the gameplay. I never got into a flow, because at the end of every mission I would constantly have that happen to me, or I'd be worried or concerned. It's so baffling that I was so relieved to hear that expedition music loading into my game, and it's like, oh thank God I'm in the expedition screen.
Thank God it's working normally.
Yeah, like, and it just really spoilt my enjoyment of the game. And that's the constant network issues, sometimes not even being able to get into the game and it crapping out. I had a lot of problems when I was in Fort Tarsus and I was speaking to different NPCs and different characters, and that would cause the service to crash again, and I'd have to restart it and do it again and make all the same choices and things like that.
I was getting locked out of areas, like you'd be fighting this cool ass battle and I'd be stuck behind a wall, that fog wall, going, can I play? Hello? And it wasn't teleporting me in. I was missing out on various things.
Yeah, you got that even on the last mission, didn't you?
That
when I was taking on a Titan. Yeah,
that was ridiculous. And I was trying to backtrack, going, if I go further away, will it teleport me?
You were like, if I commit suicide,
I'll jump in this lava pool.
Will it actually then teleport me into you for you to res me?
I'm in a Colossus. It's like a hot bath. I'm just chilling here in the lava.
Absolutely baffling. So you had problems with that a lot, didn't you? And that's because you were the Colossus, so you were slower than I was.
Yeah. A lot
so you kept lagging behind.
Things crapped out during that. I remember that 4-player we had with those 2 randoms, and nobody could res anyone.
Yeah, that was a big problem. Like 3 of us went down, didn't we? Because the boss did this really lame ass move, and then he couldn't res any of us, could he? But then, and so he had to carry on and then die for us to then spawn into him.
Yeah, because while we're in down status, we've got no options. We can't quit the match. We can't do anything. We can't even get to a map screen.
So you just locked in. There's just so many issues.
And the scariest for me was the when a loading screen pretty much turned my PS4 off. It just crashed it out, hard crash. It's like somebody pulled the plug and it had to do a proper system reboot and memory check and all sorts.
Scanning and stuff.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I stopped playing after that.
It's like, we have stopped playing. I mean, apparently Bioware are bringing out a massive update today, so hopefully that's going to fix the issues that you've been having. But a lot of people have been having that issue with it bricking their PS4. And then that's not to take into account things like, enemies that would despawn. We had sound and subtitle glitches that were happening all over the place. NPCs in Fort Tarsus that were showing that they had conversation options that you could talk to them, but then you get to them and you couldn't actually talk to them. We had glitches in the Forge where the armor was all warped and it was still showing that you were equipping your ranger even though you're on your storm and different things. So there are so many performance issues and lagging issues as well. We had a lot of lagging issues, and that really affects your enjoyment of flying and hovering and the combat and things like that. All of these problems just make it impossible to get into a groove with the game. A huge problem, because
very disjointed.
Yeah, it just feels incredibly disjointed, and it's so frustrating. And that is the biggest problem with it. Like, this game should not have been released in this state. Now, of course, Bioware have been doing a lot of updates to the game. This will be the 4th patch that they've done, which is coming out today.
I need to clear some hard drive space again.
I know, and you've got to give them credit. They have been staying in contact with players. They have been letting players know what they're working on. They have been releasing updates to improve the performance of it and all the issues with it. But they're pretty much they're trying to fix all the huge problems with the game. It's got to go without saying, guys, this game should never have been released in this state. Yeah, Bioware, well done for doing what you need to do, and that's good, but the game should never have been released in this state. I would have been absolutely fine with waiting another year, another 2 years for Anthem to come out, if it had come out with a fully fleshed out story and characters, a game that works a lot smoother, and I feel like they didn't know what to do, or I think the problem with Bioware is they're an experienced team, right? But they have experience in making single player story driven RPGs. They are not a developer that is got experience making online open world looter shooters. And that really showed in Anthem. They've made a lot of design choices that are just baffling. They've got a lot of problems with their servers and bugs and issues with their bugs and things like that because they've never had to deal with this kind of thing before.
They should have had a few earlier beta tests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well.
Absolutely.
That only beta test was too late.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks before the game, 2 weeks before the game was set to come out. It needed to be a lot earlier, at least 6 months, maybe a year even before the game was set for release, especially with these always online open world. I think the problem with Anthem is it doesn't feel like a Bioware game, even when I was playing it, except for the odd moments where you've got detonators and primers and the combat and the odd conversations, the odd characters that had that Bioware sparkle. But for the majority of this game, it didn't feel like a Bioware game. And it doesn't, I don't know if it's just me, because obviously I've played a lot of Bioware games in the past, and you can always feel in Bioware games that there's this passion for the project, there's this heart to it, there's this, you feel it. I didn't feel that in Anthem. The game doesn't feel like it has any heart. It feels like they've done, and Angry Joe coins this, MVP, minimal viable product. That they've basically done the bare minimum for what they need to do, for what's acceptable by EA standards, which we already know is pretty shit and quite low, to get that game released.
And we'll patch stuff in after.
And then we'll patch stuff in afterwards. And that is the problem with games as a service.
Yeah.
Games as a service do not work. Notoriously, every single freaking game that comes out, I'm getting angry now, so I'm swearing. Every single game that comes out as games as a service has disappointed. I don't think I've ever had one where it's come out from day one in a brilliant state and I've gone, God, this is fun, this is really good, I can't wait to see what else they're going to bring to it.
Seriously, if this wasn't Bioware, I wouldn't have even bothered.
I know, and I'm the same with you. I would not have bothered with this game if it wasn't Bioware. The only reason I bought this game is because it's a Bioware game, and Bioware are a special developer for me, and I love them. They're the reason I became a gamer, they're the reason I became a YouTuber. So I wanted to know what they had to offer, and especially after the controversy with Mass Effect Andromeda and many people feeling like this is the game that was sort of chosen over that game, with the Edmonton crew developing it. I wanted to see if it was going to live up to expectations, and unfortunately it hasn't even done that. If anything, it's been a huge disappointment. It's had some good points to it, but I don't see how Bioware are going to fix the game. It just has so many problems with it, and it's not just problems with bugs and glitches. It has core problems with its gameplay design, core problems with its loot and its mechanics that you can't fix in a patch.
Like while we were playing, there were quite some few times where you were just going, oh, this is cool, oh, this bit's awesome, and then it would be instantly stopped by something.
Yeah, by a glitch or something.
Okay. Or a crash, or a glitch, or something else going off, or, oh, no, we've got to do that, okay.
Yeah, it really is a problem. This whole games as a service thing, I hate it. I think it's just destroying the industry. I think it's producing really substandard, low-standard games. It's giving developers...
the wrong idea.
And it's sort of given that they think this is not acceptable, and developers are starting to go, do you know what, we'll just release the game in its basic standard, and we'll just add to it later, and we'll add content to it later, and we'll update it, and we'll improve it later. And I just think that's really wrong. I mean, Division 2 is coming out, I think, on the 15th of March, and there's just been a news that's hit today that the first day one patch is going to be 80 gigabyte. That's like downloading an entire freaking game onto your hard drive, or two.
That's a big no, sir.
That's absolutely ridiculous. So this whole games as a service thing for me is absolutely awful. So, of course, if I was going to give it a score, I've been up and down with this for the last few weeks, but I'd probably give Anthem maybe a 4.5 or 5 out of 10. I would say it's an average to low average, below average game. It has moments of greatness, but it's hindered by poor game design. It has so much potential that it doesn't quite realize. With its performance issues and its bugs, it really has hindered my enjoyment of it. So this game is...
Can't play it offline.
No, and if I could play this game single player solo, I might have enjoyed it a bit more.
Yeah.
But it just with the always having to play it online and the issues with the it just doesn't feel like Bioware. And I don't even know if I have an interest in where they're going to take it and what the next one's going to offer. I guess we'll have to see, but I'm more interested in their other projects, Dragon Age 4, the next Mass Effect game, which they are going to be working on. Mass Effect Andromeda was 10 times the game this is. It was such a better game compared to Anthem, and that game got really shat upon unfairly, and which makes me angry to think back on it. And Anthem, for the fact that it's been developed by the Edmonton team, it's really shocking how poor quality this game is. So those are my general thoughts on it. What would you give it, Dante?
It depends if the servers kick me out or not at the time. A lot of the enjoyment just keeps getting lost for various things. I don't know. I want to... 6 is too generous sometimes.
It's far too generous, 6. 6 is above average.
Because when it worked in certain places, it was awesome. But then there was just so many down points. It's just really subtracted. Yeah, 5-ish. 5,
about the same. So Anthem, 5 out of 10. That's generally my thought on it. I would say, guys, if you're thinking about playing this game, don't play it yet. Wait. Wait for all the patches to come out. Wait for the new content updates coming in May. You wouldn't be doing yourself a disservice. This game is not worth buying at the moment in the current state it's in.
Save yourself a lot of frustration.
Save yourself some time. There's other games coming out at the moment. If you're wanting a looter shooter game, obviously there's Division 2 coming out on the 15th of March. And while I didn't like the first Division, I think the second one's going to be a big improvement, particularly compared to Anthem. It's going to be a better looter shooter game, even with its terrible day one patch.
Get the Handsome Jack collection. Get Borderlands 2.
But when Borderlands 3 comes out, that is the ultimate. That is the best example of a good online multiplayer looter shooter
that has interactable NPCs that you can all listen to.
Great story, great characters, interesting loot. That's what you need to do. That is what Anthem needed to be. It needed to be a Borderlands style game.
Oh, could you imagine?
It would have been amazing. It would have been so good. But anyway, those are just generally my thoughts on, our thoughts on Anthem. I know it's been a bit of a tangent and it's been a really long video, so thank you so much if you've stuck by with us this long. I do really appreciate it. But let me know what you guys think, obviously, in the comment section below. All right, guys and girls, take care, and as always, happy gaming.
Johnny.
Bye, guys.
All the scars are down.
Sockets!
You look strong. Good job.
Good job.
That is all I have for you right now. Be proud of what you have done.
You feeling proud?
Meh. I'm a meh on that. Mostly meh.